Our show is all about sustaining energy, so one huge way to do that is to harness our abundant sunshine. Solar technology has become amazingly sophisticated, enabling us to convert the sun's rays into energy. Maura Yates is about to enlighten us.
So Bernie, we've got this great resource in Arizona. I bet you can't guess what it is.
Is it the sun?
You got it. So the sun shines for more than 300 days of the year, which means that it could be going to work for you and saving you money for over 300 days. But the key is how. We've got solar electric systems, which are commonly called PV, and we have solar water heating systems that are designed to offset the cost associated with heating your water.
I see.
But let's first talk about solar PV systems. If you take a look, this homeowner has solar panels on their roof.
Yep.
These solar panels are what create electricity. So what first happens is the sun shines down and the rays hit the solar panels. Solar panels then start working and churning and creating DC energy. This DC energy then is piped down off the panels through conduit into an inverter, then takes this DC energy and converts it to AC energy. Now, AC energy is the type of energy that we use in our homes. So this AC energy is then used to offset the energy that you're using to power your washing machine or your lights that are turned on, or even on hot days like today when you're running your air conditioning, it goes to help power that air conditioning.
Oh, great.
If you have anything extra that it's produced, that then goes back into the APS grid, and APS gives you a credit for anything that you produce over what you consume.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good way to save money.
Excellent way to save money. So let's just take a closer look at how solar panels work. So Bernie, it's a little hot out here and the sun is cranking, as you can tell by the solar-powered bird fountain. The sun is powering this fountain through this solar panel that we have right here.
Oh, wow.
No cords, nothing. It's all done by the sun. So what's happening is the sun rays are shining on this solar panel, and this solar panel is connected to a little pump, a little water pump. And that water pump is creating this fountain. So let's take a look at the effect of shading. If you could hold your hands over this panel, let's see what happens.
Oh, it completely reduces the flow.
Exactly. So imagine that this panel were up on your roof and you had a big tree. What do you think would happen to that panel?
I'll bet it's not getting enough sun and not producing as much energy.
Exactly. So that's one thing to keep in mind when you're choosing to buy a solar system. Make sure that you don't have shading on your roof.
Okay. What are some other things I should think about, Maura?
That's a good question. You need to keep 3 things in mind. One, you want to make sure that you have a western, an eastern, or a southern roof exposure to mount these panels on.
Okay.
North isn't ideal because you don't get maximum production. Second thing to consider is to make sure that it's unshaded for the reasons that we just saw. And then the third thing to consider is the inverter placement. It's really important to make sure that inverter is located in the shade and not out in the sun.
Okay.
So you want to make sure that you have a location on the side of your home with a shade over it, or inverters are commonly placed in the garage.
Okay, great. Maura, and if I were interested in actually getting started going solar, what would be the next steps?
You know, let's head inside and talk about how you get started.
Okay.
So before you get moving, before you start calling installers, we really recommend that you sit down and think about what are your goals. If you're installing a solar electric system, is your goal to offset 50% of your bill? Is your goal to offset 100% of your bill? Or are you doing it for the environmental benefits?
Okay.
So before you get out there and start shopping around, think about that so that you have an idea of what you're going to communicate to the installers.
Okay.
We recommend that you use the APS Qualified Solar Installer Program. The Qualified Solar Installer Program has vetted installers to make sure that they're licensed, bonded, insured, and have high customer satisfaction ratings. So we recommend that you go out and you get bids from 3 different qualified solar installers.
Okay.
At that point, you can start looking at the prices and working with them to see how you can best accomplish your goal. All right, Bernie, there's just a couple other things to keep in mind.
Okay.
You want to make sure you check out the warranties. Solar panels traditionally carry about a 20-year warranty. Inverters traditionally carry about a 10-year warranty, and there's a warranty on workmanship and labor.
Okay.
When you're looking at a solar water heater system, make sure that major components are also covered by a warranty.
Okay.
And then, lastly, you want to make sure you keep in mind the things that we talked about outside for PV. You know, the roof exposure, the unshaded space, and then a location for the inverter.
Okay.
And with solar water heating, a big thing to remember is that there's room in the water heater closet to fit an additional solar storage tank. So That's one thing to make sure you have a discussion with your installer about is there room to fit that water heater tank?
Okay. How large are they typically?
It depends on the system that you're installing
Okay.
and depends on what your water usage is.
All right.
So be sure to bring that up with your installer.
Okay.
And then the last thing to keep in mind is just the maintenance. Fortunately, solar electric systems are relatively low maintenance. Around the 10th year of the system, traditionally an inverter will need to be replaced. It might last a little bit longer, but I'd budget for it around year 10.
Okay.
And then you'll also want to maybe consider getting your panels washed off once a year. If you live in a really dusty area, it affects the performance, but not much.
Okay.
And we do recommend that you work with your installer to get those washed off so you're not getting up on the roof.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'd want to do that.
No,
Okay.
me neither.
Great, Maura. This sounds really wonderful. I'd love to be able to offset 50 to 70% of my bill, but how much does it cost?
Don't worry, Bernie. This is where it really benefits being an APS customer and being in Arizona.
Okay.
So the 6 kilowatt system that's on this homeowner's roof, that traditionally costs a little less than $36,000.
Wow.
I know, that seems like a lot of money, but that's where APS comes into play.
Okay.
So a combination of the APS incentives plus the federal and the state tax credits can reduce that cost by greater than 50%.
Oh, okay. That makes it more affordable.
It certainly does. So we recommend to get the current pricing for APS's incentives, check out our website and go to current incentives available.
Okay.
And then you can find out what APS's incentives are.
Sounds good.
Let's take a look at this homeowner's APS bill.
Great.
So when you look at it, you've got 521 off-peak hours, 521 kWh produced in the off-peak, and 208 kilowatt hours produced during on-peak.
Okay.
What APS does then is they take that net. So they subtract that off your total consumption,
Yes.
and you get your net electricity consumed.
Okay.
I know that seems like a lot, but it's a basic math equation.
Yep.
You take your total electricity consumed minus what your system produced, giving you your net bill.
Oh, great. And in this
Okay.
case, the customer obviously has a fairly significant credit.
It's incredible. You know, he went from paying 3 times this much a year ago before the solar was put on the roof. So significant savings.
Okay, great.
And that's the benefit of APS's net metering. So the net metering is where you get those credits. But let's say it's a month where you're out of town for an entire month. Your system doesn't stop producing just because you leave.
Right.
So what happens is that all gets credited to APS, and APS starts building up a bank account for you. As the kilowatt hour bank account keeps building, and then all those months where you maybe consume more than your system produces, you pull out of your bank account,
Okay.
okay? And that's what we call net metering.
Oh, great.
Okay.
And then more, at the end of the year, what happens if I still have a credit?
Depending on what net metering option you choose, APS will pay you a wholesale rate for any excess kilowatt hours you have.
Oh, okay. great.
So it might be one of the few times the utility cuts you a check for the electricity you're producing.
Good deal.
So Bernie, we spent some time earlier today talking about solar PV, or solar electric systems. But now it's time to talk about the other half of the equation, solar water heating.
Great. Okay.
So solar water heating is designed to offset the costs associated with heating your water. So that's how you save the money. Now, we have a system behind us. It's called a passive system. There's several types of systems out there, but this one is gravity fed, hence why it's called a passive system. The active systems out there have a pump that circulate the heat exchange fluid. The way it works is the water comes in from the city, circulates in the tubing up in the box, and then comes down off the roof into this water heater tank, and it typically comes off the roof greater than 140 degrees. So, since the water's coming in at greater than 140 degrees, it saves us by not having our backup fuel source fire up. So when you're at the sink doing dishes, turning on the hot water, the backup fuel source doesn't fire on, whether it's gas or electric. The water is heated from the sun and goes directly into the faucet.
I see. And
Yep.
then more, if I live in Phoenix, is there a reason to choose kind of one system over another, or I guess are there geographic differences in which you would select?
Definitely a conversation to have with your installer, but
Okay.
passive systems where there's water circulating as the heat exchange medium, you want to avoid using those in climates where they have freezing. Now, price-wise, I know
Yes.
that was
Sure.
a concern with the PV, and on solar water heating, we're hitting a much different price point.
Okay.
So typically, a system like this is going to cost you around $6,000.
I see.
But just like with the solar electric systems, A combination of APS incentives, federal and state tax incentives can save you more than 50% on the cost of this system.
So it's really closer to the price point of a regular water heater.
You got it. Okay. So that's a perfect time to think about installing solar water heating as if you're swapping out your traditional water heater tank as well. And just like with solar PV, we saw savings monthly, actually daily.
Right.
Typically, you can save up to 15% of your monthly energy costs by installing a solar water heating system. So today we've touched on two different things. We've touched on solar electric and solar water heating. Both hit different price points with different objectives.
In terms of cost, I guess we're still looking at some relatively high price points from an out-of-pocket standpoint. So, I mean, are there options that make it more accessible to people, or?
You're right. There's definitely an out-of-pocket cost. It's greater than $100, and so it's something to consider. So what APS has done is we've partnered with local financing institutions and local installers and developers to offer financing programs. So whether you want to look at a lease model, a loan, a same as cash payment, it's definitely something to work with your installer on. Check out the APS website, and we can give you input on how to make this more affordable.
Oh, great. Well, thanks so much, Maura.
That's wonderful, Maura. Thanks so much.